Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I am your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm privileged to welcome a very, very accomplished professional from Vancouver, Canada, Dr. Michele Vincenti. Michele, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Ashutosh.
Dr. Vincenti is the president and CEO of Alvana Business Consulting Incorporated, offering expertise to clients in the areas of wealth management, leadership, and business startups. He's the chair of the Leadership and People Management Group of the, which is an MBA university in Canada West, and he has been recognized, awarded, and felicitated several times. So, Michele, before we come to Alvana and leadership, tell me a little bit about your own journey in brief.
Thank you very much. And of course, I will not start when, I was very little. Basically, I was an entrepreneur back in Italy. I own an insurance agency.
Wow.
And then at the age of 37, I decided to leave Italy and come to Canada. So I came to Canada for business using a business immigration program. And at the time, basically, I started an Italian restaurant with my wife at the time. And not that was my profession, of course, but it was certainly a way to obtain the visa in coming to Canada. And then, of course, after obtaining the visa, I, basically got a job into a credit union, which is a sort of bank. I don't know in India if you have this concept.
Yeah.
And I started as an investment advisor, and then I became the director for the wealth management division after only a few months because of my expertise in the stock market because of my previous job in Italy.
Right.
And then again, I decided to enroll myself into an MBA. I was already an adult. I completed an MBA. I supposed actually to become the COO for the bank. That's why they supported me in that role. But then 3 credit unions merged together. And so basically we ended up with the 3 CEO, 3 CFOs, etc. And that's okay. And so for me, then I made a relationship with my professor at the time for my MBA. And he said, Michele, you really should consider teaching. And so, that's basically said, if you can pass the 8-hour exam to become a certified management consultant, at that time we had 8 hours, you can start teaching. And then after 6 months later, he became a vice president, and now you have my position. Anyway, that's the longest story short. I got involved in academia. And at the same time, of course, as I learn with my students, I have 14 professional certifications, including, again, the certified management consultant still there.
Fascinating.
And so here I'm still in academia, but also, of course, I practice as a management consultant because of my expertise.
Fantastic. So today, let's talk about Alvana Business Consulting and some of the other consulting relationships that you have. Tell me about Alvana Business Consulting and what do you do here?
Well, as I always say, the name is because they are the initials of my 3 children. And so that is a family connection there. And I always had the passion for startup and really helping startup. I have a few other companies myself, in artificial intelligence, where is one of my passion there. And so my company has been always involved in terms of coaching executives and helping entrepreneurs in going into the market And especially those are entrepreneurs from Europe. Being Italian, I have still lots of connections there. And so as an entrepreneur and as a management consultant, I help again a company to go into international market, to develop strategies. Actually, I started teaching management consultant strategy at the time, and again launching new products into the market.
Very interesting. And you also do a lot of work on leadership.
Yes, this one again, I mentioned to you, I have a 14 professional certification, and I started my life again as an insurance agent, owners, operator. And then I did lots of study in the financial service. I'm currently also fellow of the Canadian Security Institute and portfolio manager. But I always had this passion, maybe due to the fact that being an Italian when I was a little kid, I really liked the Renaissance time where basically people were involved in learning not only one area, but in the end, if we want to talk about the law of complexity, everything is connected, right? And so I decided to go through my leadership study in Santa Barbara, California. And that's where I enrolled myself into a PhD in organizational development system with a focus in neuroscience and leadership.
Wow.
And I'm still learning, right? But again, people consider me a leader. I mean, right now I'm the chair for the department, but up to 2 years ago, I was the chair for the entire department, the MBA program. And so I used to manage a large amount. But right now I'm going back to the large because the university is going very high. So usually I have a good appreciation as me being a leader.
So I'm going to ask you a few questions on leadership. For someone who is Italian, very, very strong family connections. And whenever I worked with Italian leaders, it has always been a lot of emotion. I moved to Canada, educated yourself, ran your own business. What are some of the leadership trends you have seen change over the last few decades?
Well, changes are always there. It's about the perceptions, right? And again, when I teach leadership to my students, I always remind them that the best doesn't exist. And so this is, we have this misconception that company or people say, I want to be the best. Well, everything is always contingent to a situation and the people. So I have seen a lot of change. Of course, I cannot talk about globally because I'm only one, and I experience, I know Europe quite well and North America. I mean, if you want actually the West Coast, because even in Canada, United States, you have lots of differences from one place to another. I have seen going through what basically what we call the age groups changing. So we have this kind of a belonging to, I don't know, Gen X, Gen Y, which is again because those generations are going through some external environment. And so I see also a lot of adaptations. And definitely, I think that what we experience with the COVID, even if it is extremely negative, I have seen a lots of leaders coming up, which maybe previous to COVID, they were not feeling themselves in that kind of position. So again, that the situation. And I have seen actually old and young people, getting acquainted with the technology, etc. So for me, leadership is not only leader with a capital L, which you hear on the news, but there is everyday people, and they have a huge impact on everybody else. So those are extremely important, and maybe more important, they don't go to the news. But again, a lot of adaptation and this courage to lead. I see that it's more than before.
Very interesting. And, we're just coming out of the pandemic. I've spoken to many people who are leaders of corporations and the social sector. I would love to get your perspective on how has the pandemic changed or impacted leaders?
Again, I think that first of all, again, I always say, and I truly believe that predisposition is not a predetermination. And so certainly we have something related to DNA, which, some trait or characteristic which maybe in certain situations, because maybe again, I have a certain characteristic which are okay here in North America, but they might not be good in South America. Right. But I see again that what I can say that really leadership can be learned, basically. And also we always have what Isaac Newton said in the quasi-stationary theory: for every positive force we have a negative force. And this is about what we really want to see. Correct. Because those two forces exist at any given time. And because, I always say to my students, we are lazy creatures, right? We have a limited energy. And so we tend to go with the status quo. Correct. And so when I say what, the pandemic became, again, a catalyst, I guess, even in a very negative way, unfortunately, lots of people died. So I cannot say that it was in any way wanted or expected. But again, you see, and even for entrepreneur, the same concept. You can cry about a problem and keep crying, or you can see the problem and make the problem an opportunity. So I saw a lots of people became entrepreneur and great leader and made a fortune because of the pandemic. And others maybe not, again, because for whatever reason they remain trapped in the negativity, in looking at the negative. So again, I think that sometimes, and again, maybe we don't have a formula yet. Sometimes we make a decision to become a leader. Some other times it's the situation which is impacting leadership, and leaders become leaders and resources to other people, basically. Very
interesting. The next question I have is on culture. We all come from different cultures, different backgrounds, and leadership really is driven a lot by our own backgrounds, by our own upbringings.
Yes.
I want to get your perspective on how does culture impact leadership?
It does very much, and actually this is intercultural relationship. When I talk to clients or business people from around the world, actually is something that they complain missing sometimes in their workforce, because we are used in thinking that our culture is the best, and this what everybody else should have, when we know that that is not the case. So I think that's why if you look at today at what employers are really looking for, they're looking for critical thinkers. And critical thinker means remaining inquisitive and looking at things once again. It can be and not or. So when I look at things, it is not the black or white. It's not my culture and your culture, but it can be both. So I think again that the leaders are starting. I can see the good leader or the effective leader, whatever definition we want to say there, are very aware about this. And so I think again that the business leaders needed to have that framework and look at the world from the lenses that and not or.
Very interesting. So one more question relating to leadership, and then I'll move to some of your thoughts on startups.
Sure.
The whole world is talking about the Great Resignation. The young people are changing the way they want to work. What, in your view, is the role of leaders in being able to manage the challenges being faced by the Great Resignation?
Well, once again, I think that usually the example I make when we talk about this is about that, I don't know, the 55 years old employees who worked all his life or her life for a company, and the company started experiencing financial troubles. Correct. And the employees did nothing to prepare. So I'm very sympathetic about that individual who lost their job, but I have to say that he or she bears a responsibility for that. So we cannot control what is going on around us, but certainly we must have a beacon and the purpose, whatever that purpose is, and doesn't have to be financial only. But we also have the ability to do some risk management.
Correct.
And so I think if we do not go through the process of understanding that things might change, and if we are not, again, remaining inquisitive in every day, and we challenge what I see, again, even this morning I had the class showing an interview with the neuroscientist saying, again, because we are lazy creatures, all our senses are seeing what we expect to see, what we expect to smell, because we feel comfortable, right? So if I am an HR professional, I want to look for a problem in HR because I know how to solve it. But again, the problem might be in accounting, and because I hate it, most likely I will not look into. So I think, again, that answer to your question, we need, again, to improve critical thinking, and as leaders, we need to understand that employees are looking for alternative, and so we should be able to understand their needs and build the companies around that are really giving a reason for these people to stay, and show them that we have a risk management and we are there for them. Of course, unbelievable things can happen. But again, I think that we missed lots of boats, again, talking about the pandemic, and I expect we will repeat, unfortunately, similar mistakes.
I'm with you.
Unfortunately, so, thinking about, we have lots of military thing. I mean, somebody would be there thinking about somebody. It looks like nobody really did.
Absolutely. Well said.
So
now let me move to some thoughts from you on startups.
Yes.
You've done your own startups, you've mentored startups, you support startups. Let me start by asking you that, based on a lot of your own experience, what, in your view, are the most important qualities a startup entrepreneur should have?
Persistency.
Okay.
Persistency. And most likely also a passion. And the desire to do something because it will matter.
Yeah.
And it will be basically, again, what I said before, that you see a problem as an entrepreneur, and instead of crying and complaining, you're going to say, okay, how can I help people to reach? Again, I have lots of friends that much more successfully than I am, which they were able to sell their companies for billions of dollars. And again, their beginning was exactly that. And you see a problem, and you are so passionate about that, that you really will go beyond what the rationality means. And what I've seen is, again, that the longer you are in the game, the more probabilities you have.
Wonderful. Okay. My next question is, that it is often believed, or that only 1 out of 10 startups really makes it.
Yeah.
What, in your opinion, are some of the reasons why startups fail?
Well, first of all, actually, many people will look at that number as a negative, but I make another example about the lottery. And if we really want to win the lottery, I think the 649, I don't know in India, but here we have a 649. I think it's a 1 out of 24 millions.
Wow. Okay.
The possibility to hit the jackpot. And, my experience in entrepreneurship is 1 out of 4,000 actually become successful. And so I when I look at those things in this perspective, actually, the 1 out of 4,000 against the 1 out of 24 millions, or the 1 out of 10, is not that bad.
Yeah.
It's not that bad. So now, why people fail, again, most likely is because they don't have a product that the clients needs. They think they have the best child, and their child is the best, and they want to convince everybody else that their child is the best. And maybe not. again, if it's the customer that need to have a need, or you know that there is a problem and you need to solve that problem.
Very interesting. The other question that is often asked from startup entrepreneurs, and they've asked me this question many times, so I'm going to ask you, when should a startup look for money? Should they bootstrap as long as possible, or should they raise money whenever it is available?
Yeah, also for this one, again, I did some extensive, studies about this, and basically money is not a problem. I know people says, always complaining, look, I don't have money. Well, you don't have money because maybe you don't have the good idea. Because actually there are around lots of venture capitalists or angel investors and, many platforms out there. And if you really have the right idea, I always never had a problem about money. And then, of course, you need to be you. And so the reason why people will invest is the idea, but then you, and so how much you are important in that. If it's just the idea, I don't need you.
Correct.
But if you are part of the idea, then I can buy both of you. I can put my money in. And again, so 1 out of 10 is not actually is a very good preposition. I jump in all the time if I have a good idea.
Wonderful. And my last question to you, and this is addressed to you because of so many different things that you have, and this is for the many, many people who will listen to our conversation. Based on your amazing journey across the continents, as an entrepreneur, as an academician, as a consultant, what would you say are 3 lessons you would want our viewers and listeners to take away from your own learnings and from our conversation?
Well, the first thing, as I said, is the understanding that life is not easy.
Yeah.
And so when they look at successfully people, I really want to tell them, please don't be jealous about these people. Because I don't believe in luck. And the people, do a lots of things. And the more you buy the tickets, more you have a possibility to win. If you don't buy the ticket, you don't go anywhere.
Well said.
So definitely is to have respect and maybe looking at these people and say, what kind of sacrifice they made. Am I ready to make sacrifices? Today we always talk about the balanced life. I always say to my students and my friends, I don't believe in balanced life, unfortunately. Maybe it would be nicer to have, but you are in 100% one way or another. And whatever you choose is not bad, as long as you understand that's who you are. That's what makes you happy. So I wanted to leave people with this concept of respect for success. Success doesn't come easy. Sometimes it comes when you are 18. And sometimes, Kentucky Fried Chicken became famous and reached, I think, 65. And so, but again, it's about the passion, to have the passion, to acquire knowledge about what they are and try to help people. So have also this social entrepreneurship concept. And if you do that, if you don't think just money to make money, I think that's helped me quite a lot. So do things without expecting anything, but just try really to create the value.
Wonderful. And on that note, Dr. Vincenti, thank you so much for speaking to me. Thank you for 3 wonderful lessons. Life is not easy, and always keep looking at successful people and say, what can I learn from them? Success will take its own time. And you also spoke about the importance of persistence and passion. So on that note, thank you for speaking to me about your own journey, about Alvana Business Consulting, about so many thoughts in leadership and so many wonderful thoughts for startups. Thank you again, and good luck to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast. For platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the brand called You.